With banks on the verge of collapse and the country battling to stay in the Eurozone, the world's focus has been on Greece. But campaigners say the potential is building for a full-blown debt crisis in many parts of the developing world.
There's a huge boom in lending happening, especially to some of the most impoverished countries in the world at the moment. So we're worried that unless action is taken, they could end up in new debt crises again.
Among the 20 countries described as most vulnerable to a debt crisis is Mozambique.
Its economy has been booming massively. It's had huge amounts of lending to the country, but actually poverty is increasing at the same time, and inequality is increasing. So the loans are not necessarily helping in tackling the problems of the country.
Nations often borrow on international markets to develop infrastructure, but the Jubilee debt campaign says it is often misspent. The group says 20 nations are already mired in debt crises, with many more vulnerable to economic turbulence. It's all tied to the recent financial crisis, says Judith Tyson of the Overseas Development Institute, speaking via Skype from Greece.
We've really seen a surge of debt being issued because of the search for yield, which is where investors in primarily in Europe and in the United States are looking for new investments because of the very low interest rates in our economies. And one of the places that they've invested large amounts of money is in sovereign debt in developing countries.
Other countries have been burdened with high debts for decades, says Jones, citing Jamaica as an example.
And actually since the 1990s they've had huge government surpluses, but the debt has remained because the interest is just so high and the economy has been depressed in the attempt to pay these debts.
That is the argument put forward by the Greek government, but Europe, led by Germany, insists spending cuts and reforms are the only way to revive the economy. For indebted developing countries, there are additional risks.
There's a bigger problem is that the debts are all owed in foreign currencies like the dollar or the euro. And so when a country has a currency devaluation, the debt payments shoot up.
Campaigners are calling for much tighter regulation of lending and debt write-offs for those countries already in crisis. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.